This is the Tree of Life, Season 21, Chapter 5. This episode will be developing renunciation as an alternate path as between sublimation, acquiescence, and negation. Throughout these podcasts, at least throughout the Tree of Life, we have discussed negation and acquiescence as if they are the only alternatives, with sublimation and verbalization being a third, somewhat impermanent option. The idea was, in negation of an impulse, there can be either sublimation leading to verbalization, or there can be acquiescence. Substitution events were discussed as the result of the reoccurrence of negation. Reverse substitution events were discussed as events where acquiescence preceded negation. But sublimation reveals a third possibility, a possibility that doesn't embroil the self in a dualistic self-representation. To reiterate, in substitution events, the self-representation remains anchored to the vessel, though its objects of consciousness remain divorced from it. The self-representation preserves through the bifurcation of awareness, a dualistic conception, though the objects anchored to the self-representation are not the same as those anchored to the vessel. In effect, this anchoring of the self-representation to the vessel is due to the sublimator identifying with its sublimation in the possession of it, which preserves the link to the vessel and the objects referential to the self-representation, which are not in fact reflected in time parsimony, or the causal reordering that follows the substitution event. In other words, the sublimation retains the vessel alone, disconnected from its objects. In reverse substitution events, the acquiescence leads to the flowing of consciousness into the vessel, who acts out the acquiescence, before a return of the outgoing consciousness to that vessel. Thus, the self-representation remains again, albeit disconnected from the vessel for the outgoing consciousness. The commonality between these two substitution events is the self-representation, which in a substitution event simpliciter, is linked to the vessel by disconnection of the objects of consciousness. Whereas, in a reverse substitution event, the self-representation retains its objects, but not its vessel. Thus, to some degree, the dualistic dichotomy is retained in both forms of substitution events. In one case, due to acquiescence, reverse substitution, and in the other due to sublimation. But there is another option, beyond sublimation. If one accepts that one is neither the sublimator nor the object of sublimation. In the total renunciation of the product of sublimation and the role of sublimator. Not in the rejection of acquiescence, which just leads to recurrence. One can be freed from the true enemy, which is the self-representation. It is this self-representation which anchors the self to the vessel in a substitution event, or to its objects, in a reverse substitution event. In a substitution event, the past is erased due to the disconnection of the objects of consciousness from the vessel. These paths, only in their convolution, happen in infinite recursion. In a reverse substitution event, the future is erased due to the disconnection of the self-representation from the vessel, attached as it is to its objects. But in renunciation of the self-representation, there is something else altogether. The duality, which preserves the bifurcation of awareness in both forms of substitution event, cannot exist. In its place, something beyond linear time itself. That's the end of the podcast for today.